You may not have heard this, but Roundup is kind of high priced right now.
All right, let's not say kind of high price. Let's kind of get a little bit closer here, because we've been having a debate off camera about this and where the price of Roundup's going to fall by this spring. It's anybody's guess at this point. Things can certainly change, but what is your guess? Where do you think we're going to be?
You want me to tell you what it's going to be? There's no guess. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, right.
We don't really know what's going to happen with the Roundup price, but what we know is today, roughly for name brand Roundup, it's somewhere in the $10 an acre range. Okay, there is some generic stuff that's a little bit cheaper, but here's the whole thing. We just don't see prices dropping dramatically until we get past June. Now, when we start talking late summer for the burn down after wheat, and we start looking into 2010, yeah, if I had to guess, I would say the Roundup price by this point next year will be $4 to $5 an acre. That's it. I think it's going to drop off that much in just a year's time. Unfortunately, we aren't in 2010. We aren't talking 2010. We're talking 2009. So we have to deal with this $10 Roundup. What's the best way to handle it on your farm?
Well, you really need to look at the weeds that you have, because frankly, Roundup isn't doing the job that it was just a few years ago. There's going to be more and more weeds that are tolerant and or resistant, depending on your definition with Roundup. So if Roundup isn't killing all the weeds, you have to start looking at, do I need to tank mix something, or can I afford to use those high rates of Roundup? You know, when Roundup was $3 an acre, to say, oh, you know what, I'm going to throw 2 quarts in instead of 1, well, oh boy, I spent $6. You know, big deal. But if it's $10 an acre, to say I'm going to use a double rate in order to control certain weeds, well, that's $20 an acre, and that doesn't sound very good.
Okay, let's get real specific here with exactly what we want to do. You can go out there in soybeans, let's just say, for example, and use 2 shots of Roundup. Or you can put a pre-emerge herbicide out, like Valor, for example. You can get Valor for probably $7 an acre. You can follow with Roundup for 10, you get a total program of 17. If you go 2 shots of Roundup, you got $20 in it. So you can actually save $3 an acre by putting a pre down rather than Roundup. The other thing you could do would be go with a tank mix partner along with the Roundup. Now in soybeans, we don't have a lot of great tank mix partners. You could throw in a low rate of Resource or FlexStar, maybe some Harmony GT, some Synchrony, something like that. There's nothing that's real great. Pursuit is going to do a good job on nightshade and buckwheat, so you could throw a low rate of Pursuit in with Roundup, but Pursuit also has a lot of residual, so a lot of people don't like that either. So in soybeans, a lot of guys are looking at the pre-emerge herbicide just so they don't have to go with the second shot of Roundup post-emerge. Corn is a little different story.
Well, with corn, there are a lot of choices post-emerge that can be done at low rates, and it depends on which weeds you're going after, but things like Status or Callisto or Laudus, all those are great options, and there really aren't any broadleaf weeds that you can't find a good tank mix partner for Roundup. So what's happening is some farmers are looking at it saying, well, if Roundup's $10, I can buy these residual products for about $10. Why not use a full rate of the residual product? And if I've got a little bit of grass, I'll throw a half rate of Roundup in to clean that up. So maybe Roundup becomes the tank mix partner rather than the residual herbicides.
The other option in corn, rather than adding a post-emerge product, is you can use maybe a little higher rate of a pre-emerge product, or for that matter, just putting a pre-emerge herbicide down. You know, you could go harness for maybe $9 an acre for 1.5 pints, a reduced rate, but still, if you did that, you follow up with 1 shot of Roundup, even without all those different tank mix partners, you're probably going to have great weed control. That's what we've been doing in our farm for quite a few years. So you do have choices, whether it's in corn or soybeans. You can look at putting a pre down, you can look at spiking a post-emerge product with it, and we just think that this year especially, it's good advice because the Roundup price is so high.
When you're talking about Roundup for next year, we expect the price is going to be somewhere in the ballpark of $10 an acre. And with that kind of price level and where the markets are at today, you're going to have to think about how you're going to go about weed control.
Yeah, and whether you buy name brand or generic, the important thing is at least run the numbers for your farm. We just want to make sure that in the end, at the end of the season, you've found the very best deal that's out there. Sometimes that means getting the best price up front. Sometimes it means paying a little more and getting some of the benefits to go along later during the season.
And if you've got our Weed of the Week, you're certainly going to need to think about how you're going into weed control for next year, because it is a difficult to control weed. Can you identify this week's weed?